Welcome back, guys, to another video. And in today's video I'm going to be talking about a system that really changed my life when it came to gaming. I know a couple of videos back I talked about the PS2, but in this video I'm going to be talking about PlayStation memories. So let's go. Now, where to begin with all of this? I guess I can start from the beginning, that it was 1995, around 1995-96. I was around 10 years old at the time, and I've mentioned in other videos about how much I loved gaming in the 90s. I thought it was such a renaissance period for gaming, because at this point gaming became a staple form of entertainment. So with that being said, companies started pushing the boundaries, trying to make more money and to make our experience more enjoyable. And with that being said, there were a lot of changes. You know, growing up and with the NES and upgrading to the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis was revolutionary enough. But at this point, we started finding things a little different. And one of the things that I really remember is the jump from cartridge to CD-ROM. And, you know, it's kind of funny thinking back about that. CDs, it's everything. It's part of the norm. Optical media is there. But I remember finding out that video games came on a disc. I was like, you don't play video games on a disc. That's what you listen to music on. And it was such a new experience for me. So that being said, and I had a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis, I felt obligated as if I had to choose between a Nintendo 64 or a Sega Saturn. And I played both systems and I really enjoyed them. I mean, Mario 64 was awesome. Nights on Sega Saturn is awesome. But there was one system I was very curious about, and I found this system when I went to a department store called Hills. I went there to buy some Ronin Warrior action figures. If you guys remember that show, you guys are awesome. But I went there to buy some action figures, and I went to the electronics section, and I saw this kiosk. It was a Sony PlayStation kiosk, and I remember the first thing I was thinking about was, what is this thing? And I walked up to it and I saw the controller. This controller right here, which is, you know, by the day standards, you know, we have the PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. We've seen it change a little bit with the PlayStation 4. But back then, this was such a new concept. Of course, it had the extra shoulder buttons, you know, 2 compared to just 1 each on the Super Nintendo. But the buttons were no longer letters or numbers, they were shapes. And I thought that was really weird. Another thing I thought was really weird was the D-pad. The D-pad was not connected, and it sounds funny saying this, but I used to think that, oh, how could you use this D-pad if it has that space in the middle? But from the get-go, I knew it felt better in my hands than it did the N64 or the Sega Saturn. Needless to say, I was hooked. I wanted a Sony PlayStation, but being 10 years old, I knew the concept of money. I knew it didn't grow on trees, so I knew the only way I could get a system was either on Christmas, my birthday, or maybe if I was lucky, get a decent report card. So I talked about this PlayStation for a year straight, probably made my parents absolutely hate me. Because they would always be like, you already have all these systems, why do you want this one? And I think that's a very common argument a lot of kids have with their parents at that time. But I finally got a PlayStation that Christmas, about a year later. And it's a really funny story because my mom got this PlayStation from Toys R Us and it was a bundle. It came with the system, the controller, it came with a memory card, which that itself was like a foreign concept. We didn't have to rely on battery-operated cartridges or passwords anymore. You just had these little memory cards. And it also came with Madden 98. Yeah, and I am not a huge football fan, so needless to say, I had to find a way to get rid of it. So I took it to Babbage's, which is now known as GameStop, and traded in for one of my favorite games and turned it into one of my favorite series of all time, Resident Evil. And what a great way to be introduced to a new console. This is one of my favorite games, and it was a new concept, something I'd never played before that was part of the survival horror genre. And I think one of the things that really stick in my mind with Resident Evil, I mean, I could make a whole video just talking about my memories of just that game. But it's probably the same memories a lot of people have in common with, and that's the beginning of the game, seeing that zombie's head turn at you after he just killed someone, or even some of the jump scares that you would have, like some of the dogs just jumping out of the windows. And you know, it's funny thinking back, I was never really scared of Resident Evil, but I definitely felt uneasy, but I was definitely hooked. Now, of course, one of the most important things about any video game system is the games, and the Sony PlayStation has over 1,000 games to choose from. It has such a large library, so it's kind of hard just to go and tell you every single one that I enjoyed, but some of them that really stick out in my mind would have to be a lot of the games that were from series I really enjoyed that I felt like PlayStation offered something a little new for it. A good example would be Castlevania Symphony of the Night, or another great game would be Mega Man Legends, and that was such a new concept of Mega Man being in almost like an open world action RPG. And I don't think this would be a PlayStation Memories video if I did not mention Final Fantasy VII. And wow, that right there, that game revolutionized video games as we know it, and a lot of people hold it so dear to their heart because for some people it was their first RPGs, and for some people that have been playing RPGs for years, this was such a mind-blowing experience. But anyway guys, that's just some of my memories of the Sony PlayStation. Here's where I want you guys to come in. I want you guys to leave me a comment below. Tell me some of your memories of the PlayStation. I mean, it's hard to believe this system's almost 20 years old, or it's just about 20 years old. But, you know, what were some of your favorite games, or maybe some of your memories going out and getting those Sony PlayStation magazines with a demo disc? I'd love to hear from you guys. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.